I'm excited that you've all come out. This is the second public meeting that we've had about the Downtown Connector project. We're excited for a number of reasons. One, a year ago, this wasn't even a good idea. This was a dream that we joked around about a lot. The nicest buildings in town are located on one of the worst streets that we have. And we worked behind the scenes to talk about this idea. We actually recruited our associate engineer in part by pitching, wouldn't a kid from Shelton like to come and work for us and fix the mess down at First and Alder? This is also exciting because this is one of the biggest projects that we've done in the last year and a half, and it's one that really brings about a new way of doing things that Craig and Gregory brought to Public Works when we became Public Works Director. This project really started in earnest March of 2017. Between March 2017 and November of 2017, Craig and the engineering team were able to acquire over $3.3 million in grant money. They also secured $325,000 in partner commitments to this project for a project that is going to amount to a little bit more than $4.5 million when it's done. And just to put things in perspective, the last large TIB road project that we did was Lake Boulevard. That project was in the planning stages for 3 years. At the end of those 3 years, the city went back to TIB and begged for another $1 million so that we could get the project off the ground. This project will go from our first official meeting through working with partners to come up with a solid commitment for multiple agencies to get together, grant funding, planning, design, all the way to going out to bid in less than 12 months. And that work was done primarily by Craig, Logan, Bob Tauser, and some of the other folks in our engineering team. Before I hand things over to Craig, I want to recognize that Commissioner Kevin Dorsey is in the room. Thank you, Kevin, for coming in. So any questions you have later, just shoot them right now. But with that, I'll turn things over to Craig Gregory so he can go through this project.
Thanks, Ryan. So I'm Craig Gregory, Public Works Director for the City of Shelton. And thank you so much for coming out. I know that I see some familiar faces from the last meeting, some new ones. So just overall looking at this project, what we're looking at is the entire road section from basically Mickey's Deli, so First Street, all the way to the top of the hill at C Street, which would be up around Skipworth, the entire length of Alder and Olympic Highway North, if you're not familiar with that area. So basically everything in front of the courthouse moving up the hill. And I would just like to thank our partners and our panel of experts tonight. We've got Justin Holtgrove from PUD3, who is helping us with our lighting plan at this point. And Mike Ringenberg from Mason Transit Authority, who has partnered with us on a bus pull-off that we'll get into a little more at the 8th Street intersection with Alder Street. So basically just a little west of the library. So we will be blocking that road off and actually putting in a bus pull-off there for MTA. We also have Cobry Schneidmiller. Cobry graduated from Washington State University with a bachelor's degree of science in civil engineering and currently is the civil engineer for the City of Shelton. We also have Logan Brady. Logan graduated St. Martin's University with a bachelor's degree of science in mechanical engineering. He has worked with Jacobs Engineering as a consultant to WashDOT in their Rails, Freight, and Ports Division, and is currently employed with the City of Shelton also as an associate engineer. Tonight we also have Dennis Swires. Denna received her BSE in biomedical engineering from Arizona State and gained her master's degree at University of Washington from the Industrial Mechanical Engineering Department. Denna is a licensed civil professional engineer and has worked with WashDOT for 24 years. She leads a team of safety professionals at the headquarters Traffic Operations Office as the State Traffic Safety Engineer. Her efforts in the safety arena earned a statewide Governor's Award in Safety and Engineering Excellence. Previously, as the Mount Baker traffic engineer, Denham was involved in designing and constructing over 25 roundabouts. Recently, she has completed her involvement as a panel member on the NCHRP 03-100 study. That is a mouthful. Evaluating roundabouts and corridors. Denham currently has over $25 million in safety funding that she administers. We also have Brian Walsh. Brian has worked also with the Washington State Department of Transportation for 24 years. His current title is State Traffic Design and Operations Engineer, overseeing policy and programs on traffic design, pavement markings, work zone design, and training, as well as implementing roundabouts on state systems. Prior to that, Brian was the LTAP director for Washington State and provided technical transportation engineering and support to 39 counties and over 280 incorporated communities in Washington State. Brian is currently the co-chair of the Transportation Research Committee on Roundabouts, as well as numerous other boards and committees. So thank you for all of them being here tonight. So we will get started kind of taking a look at this as we move basically from the C Street intersection at the top of the hill. First of all, we'll talk about funding. Ryan hit on it to some degree. So we got $3.33 million from TIB through a grant that we applied for and received back in November. And we also have some city funds and our partner funds totaling a project of right around $4.5 million. So starting at the top of the hill and working down from there, basically from C Street. So this is a cross-section of the roadway that is basically on that hill section. So you'll see over on the hillside portion, so it would be on the north side of the road, there is a wedge curb up against that, and the 11-foot travel lane with a basically 6-foot divider island. It's a broken island up and down the hill section, along with another 11-foot travel lane, and then a 6-inch stand-up curb, and a 3-foot deep swale before you get to a 10-foot sidewalk on the south side of the roadway. One of the big things that we really were shooting for on this was some traffic calming up and down that hill section. So instead of the 2 lanes up the hill that basically functioned as a passing lane, we have eliminated one of those lanes and reduced it down to 1 lane of traffic. That broken center island, the one thing that we heard from the community throughout this process was the safety aspect of not feeling safe traveling up and down that roadway with fairly high speeds and very close proximity to oncoming traffic. So we decided to try to split that traffic the best that we could, and also provide with only 1 lane of traffic up the hill to provide an area in the breaks in that center island as a refuge area for either stranded vehicles or broken down vehicles moving up that hill section. And then the other big thing that we heard from the pedestrian community was this area where we have that very ugly Jersey barrier right now that basically divides the lane of travel from the sidewalk. And what we tried to do was provide a little more assurance that a vehicle couldn't get to that sidewalk. So with that 6-inch curve, they would have to go basically over a 6-inch curve through a 3-foot depression to get onto the sidewalk. So providing a little safety for our pedestrians. This is a rendering of what the proposed improvements would look like. So again, you've got the 2 lanes of traffic, the broken center divider island, and the swale on the south side. This is also the area where all of our traffic lighting, overhead lighting, and pedestrian lighting will go, is in that swale on the south side of the roadway. And that was another thing that we heard from the community, was the need for better lighting and pedestrian lighting. Not a lot of pedestrian lighting up in that area. So this entire project is getting brand new lighting from C Street at the top of the hill all the way down to First Street, meeting RP8 requirements for spacing. This is the preliminary design for our overhead lighting. And basically, as you can see it, on one side, on the upper level, is the street lighting. Down here on the lower level would be the pedestrian lighting, with some added features of the hanging flower baskets and also the possibility of a banner on those. And if there is any questions, certainly feel free. I know the last meeting that we had, it worked really well, that we tried to field all of those questions as we kind of went through each one of these slides so that we didn't miss something as we kind of went along. So if you do have any questions, we certainly have the experts up here to field those questions, and we can do that as we kind of go along. Yes?
The north side of Olympic Highway North becomes basically a drain for storm water runoff. And down by the library, it actually flows to the point where you can't really drive in the right
Yes.
way. So is all that being managed as part of this?
One partner that I failed to mention was Mason Conservation District. They are not represented here tonight, but they are one of the partners. Would you like to come up? Andy's requesting. Andy's requesting a mic. This is right here. So we do have a representative here from Mason Conservation District. Sorry, John, I didn't see you walk in. John Bolander with Mason Conservation District partnered with us, and they have been working through some of those drainage issues, not only on the roadway itself, but also on some of these side roads. So we're getting an awful lot of drainage that comes off of B Street, and also the end of 12th Street, which is an undeveloped road that washes down onto Olympic Highway North. So we have addressed most of those and feel that we are very confident that we have picked up most of that stormwater and kept it off of that roadway where we're getting those issues. Yes?
Are there any plans for something with the child library?
I'll repeat the question as soon as we get done with it.
Something like a winter lane or a red lane, or using up the library to turn on the street that's dangerous in the dark.
So the question was, is there going to be some kind of enhanced safety feature at the top of the hill at C Street? So we'll get to that in just 1 second. I think we'll answer that question in the next slide. Yes?
What allowances have you made for uphill traffic for emergency vehicles?
So last week, we met with all of the first responders. So the ambulance service, fire, police, and also some of our partners, Mason Transit Authority and also the school district. And all of them took a look at what our project looked like, and they did not have an issue as far as first responders go through this project. So they feel that this is going to be adequate with the spacing and the breaks in the island, that they can get through and service any calls. Yes?
So we live in one of the three houses, our address is Olympic Highway North, but we're actually on a little frontage road right below B Street.
On the opposite side of the road?
Yeah.
Cole Loop?
We're on the south side.
Yes.
That little loop, and there's three houses down
Yes.
there. Right now, it's basically go in one end and you can come out the other end.
Correct.
So I'm assuming we're gonna lose our access.
We'll address that one in the next slide also.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll come back to that if you have another question. Any other questions?
I just seen a vehicle run the outside lane of the hill just a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah.
you're saying there's gonna be room for somebody to pull in the middle. Well, if they break down, they can't pull in the middle, now they got that lane blocked, now you're pretty much screwed getting up the hill.
And we do have,
I think eliminating that lane is a good idea.
you've also got some area between on the curb side of that road where you could get off. So you do have that 11-foot lane, but you do have some buffer area to the north of that. So right now, that's what happens anyway, is when a car breaks down, it tries to move as far over as it can. We address this with Shelton PD, and the way they deal with that now is they will bumper push any of those stranded vehicles up the hill and get them out of the way. So
You still got one lane to get uphill, even though that one lane is blocked.
yes, so if they can't get off far enough that traffic can get by, it could be dealt with a flagger, breaks in that island where you could get around that vehicle if it's an extended period of time.
How long will that take?
But it will, this is gonna create problems. Eliminating that lane is gonna create problems, I guarantee you.
We don't believe that it will, and our police department also does not believe that it will cause any issues with those breaks in the island and those refuge areas. Yes.
While the situation for cleaning straightening up the road here, they're gonna have to re-evaluate North Cliff. Because North Cliff right now it's going to be a real bottleneck coming down North Cliff to get this fixed.
We'll address Northcliffe in some of the later slides. Any other questions? Yes.
Right where the big sign is, the time and the temperature, the doctor something.
Yes, that is C Street.
Okay, and there is a left-hand turn and a right-hand turn. And the left-hand turn, there's no turn lane there, right? So I'm coming down that street, which you see heading towards Main Street. And some guy comes whipping around, there's no left-hand turn lane, and hits me. And so, how come there's no turn lane there, people are turning?
So the question is, why is at C Street, when you're coming up the hill, why is there not a left-hand turn lane? It was an issue for us. It's been an issue, I think, for this community for quite some time. We have addressed that with this project, so there now is a left-hand turn lane, designated left-hand turn lane at the top of the hill, and a through traffic lane getting by that. So we've addressed that issue. We heard the community, and we have addressed that. So this is moving back down the hill from C Street to B Street. Yes.
Going down Alder, if it's going to be a two-lane road, I have a real problem wanting to go to the library. I have to go down to 7, turn left and come in. Most people will block traffic and wait to get in that first entrance. It'll be worse if it's only a one-lane road going down.
And we'll address that one as we move down also. So this is B Street coming off. So basically where we've got that yellow triangle now, with the center divider island coming down, you will not be able to make a cross-traffic left-hand turn going down the hill onto B Street. There will be a single lane coming off of B Street onto Olympic Highway North, and a designated turn lane that will be onto B Street in this area here. So a designated turn lane and then the through traffic. So we did try to address, knowing that we had one lane of traffic, any place that there was going to be congestion, we tried to designate one turn lane to get traffic out of the flow of traffic. So moving down the hill and getting back to the question, the Cole Loop question. So this is the first entrance into Cole Loop on the south side of Olympic Highway North, and you will not be able to enter. Right now, this is a double yellow center line, so you are not allowed to cross that if you're coming up the hill to make a left-hand turn into this driveway. So we've placed this center divider island to try to discourage any traffic from stopping the flow of traffic. So if you do live in this, these few houses that are down here in Cole Loop, you will need to go to the top of the hill and turn around to come back down to get into and access this driveway.
So with the Jersey barrier,
moved. Right now, the Jersey barrier for us blocks all the headlights and a lot of the traffic noise going up and down that highway. So we're gonna remove the Jersey barrier, then what we're gonna have is all of the headlights and everything that are coming up and down the hill, all exposed now. Is there gonna be some fencing, because between the sidewalk and that loop road that you're talking about, there's quite a drop down to that road. Is there gonna be like one of those, privacy fences like they have on, is it North Cliff? They have kind of the green privacy fence thing. Is there gonna be something like that there?
So the question is there going to be a privacy fence on the back side of the sidewalk is what I'm hearing? And yes, the answer to that is yes, there is going to be a fence on the back side of that sidewalk with the privacy slats installed in that. So you should get a little reprieve from any of those headlights onto your property. So moving down the hill, this is the other entrance or exit out of Pole Loop. So basically, again, trying to discourage traffic from making that left-hand turn and impeding any kind of traffic flow moving in that single lane up the hill, placing a raised center barrier on that section. Moving down the hill, so we heard a question about what do we do about this traffic coming down the hill that likes to stop and try to make that cross-traffic turn onto 8th Street. So the proposal is to make an MTA official bus stop with a shelter on this leg of 8th Street, a sidewalk extending across that area, along with a rain garden that would be installed up to the entrance of the library. So blocking off 8th Street, and the loop would be back through the library. So we're eliminating any of that stop traffic that's coming down the hill trying to make that cross-traffic turn.
You have to go to 7th and make a left at the light.
You would have to go to 7th and make a left. Correct. Yes?
I looked at the cross-section of the road as it comes down, and as it sits now, we have where the road itself actually sways like this, and you have the water that comes down on the east side of the road coming down from B Street. And then the shift changes the other direction for the pitch of the road. And then the water comes on that side, comes all the way across the highway, and then goes into the swale or whatever on the other side. Now, the way it looked like with the new contour, you were going to hold the water on the east side of the highway as it went down, but we're without a swale. So are we looking at just keeping that water on that side, or are we funneling it across the road also the way it is right now?
So when we looked at the funding to start with in this project, you did see about $500,000 worth of storm funds that were going into this project.
Right.
So we have addressed most of those water issues. So we're trying to pick up that water in strategic locations so that we don't have that issue.
So we are going to put some drains in
Yes,
on
certainly.
the east side of the road.
And like I said, Mason Conservation District has been helping us with a bunch of those projects. So you see this area here, this is A Street. We get an awful lot of water that comes off of A Street with no drainage. There's a proposed rain garden at the end of A Street, blocking off A Street. Also one in the area coming off of basically the alley that comes back behind the old Dr. Busaka's office and comes out onto Olympic Highway North. So another rain garden here, catching a lot of that water, and then some storm drainage strategically placed up and down that hill section to catch that drainage.
On the east side, because we're just going
On
to use
both sides.
Because you were just going to use your swale to run down to the drain.
We are not proposing to put any storm water into that swale. We've got issues with drainage onto that critical slope. So we're going to try and keep all of that water into the conveyance system down the hill and into that bottom section down to 7th Street. Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So moving forward, this is another view just of 8th Street and the 7th Street intersection. Again, blocking off 8th Street with that bus pull-off and some rain garden at the end of 8th Street to catch some of that stormwater before it gets out on to the roadway. Once you get down to 7th Street, that road profile changes a bit. We are now down to 2 12-foot lanes, no center divider island on the flat section, and continuing the 10-foot sidewalk along with a planter strip on both sides. The north side of the road will contain in that planter strip from 1st to 7th Street, Logan, about 30 trees? 35 trees planted within that planter strip on the north side of the road. And then another, this actually says a 6-foot sidewalk on this slide, but it's incorrect. It's actually an 8-foot sidewalk on the north side of Alder Street.
I have a question about the trees. What kind of trees? And is it going to be the cement? I mean, where are the trees going to be planted?
So the question is what kind of trees, what species of trees, and really, I guess, location and how they're going to be planted. And I think Logan might be able to speak to that a little better.
I'll just talk about, so basically the spacing of the trees is about every 40 feet. There's 5 blocks that are gonna have enough planter strip to have the trees in them. So that gives you about 7 trees per block. We've selected 2 different species of trees. I have the pictures up here if anybody wants to see them afterward. If you're familiar with trees, one of them is a golden bell tower, ironwood. The other one is a European hornbeam known as the Franz Fontaine. So we chose 2 different species of wood just in case, or of trees, in case of disease, so it won't pass. We're gonna alternate each tree so that if some do get disease, it doesn't affect all of them. And just in case there is poor performance, they won't all perform poorly.
So the planter strip, what will that consist of? Is that in a cement box or is it planted in the soil?
No, so you're gonna have the sidewalk that you see on the left, and then you're gonna have basically an 8-foot grass strip with enhanced soils in the middle, and a root barrier that runs along the length of the sidewalk that'll prevent the roots from getting under the sidewalk and causing problems in the future. So, yeah.
And those trees were, again, our partners, Mason Conservation District, gave us 6 selections to pick from. We picked, again, 2 of those, but those were recommended by Conservation District to be what would be the best performers for our climate in this area downtown. Yes?
It seems like, okay, now, traffic that wants to go straight ahead at that stoplight, it stops, and then the traffic that wants to turn right onto 7th has to stop behind it. That is building up the traffic up the hill. Why can't we put a roundabout up there and continue the traffic, so the traffic could continue?
A roundabout what location?
Right there.
At 7th?
7th, yes.
7th, there's not enough room to put a roundabout.
What about
One thing that you are getting with this project is there is a new signal that's going to go in at the 7th Street intersection. So one of the issues that we have right now is that traffic signal cabinet that is at 7th Street is a fairly old traffic signal cabinet that is very difficult to configure or change to alter any of those, like having a protected turn. So it's very difficult to do any alterations to that intersection now. So with a brand new cabinet, we will be looking at some of those features to move traffic better through that intersection. So it might be a protected left turn, might be some of the timing issues, but yeah, in this area, it's just not feasible to put a roundabout. We don't have right-of-way on either side. It's just not enough room.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So when you're putting in more pedestrian safety, like right now, I have a blind person who crosses the street from the library and can't hear, so he has to have people help him across the street, so he'll be able to hear when the crosswalk is allowing him to cross.
Yes, so all of our crosswalk signals will go to countdowns with the audible signal so that you can actually hear them also. We're going to start upgrading all of our intersections to meet those ADA requirements. Yes.
Another issue that came up in the last meeting was the speed of bicycle riders coming down that hill as they approach 7th Street. And I was wondering if you had considered not allowing pedestrians to cross at that street, actually putting up a guardrail type barrier so that they have to slow
At 7th Street?
at 7th Street.
So the question is, how do we deal with the speeds of bikes coming down the hill? And at this point, dealing with our consultants and some experts, we don't have a great solution to that hill section and the speeds of either bikes or skateboarders coming down that hill section. So we've been looking into that. We don't have a great solution to that issue at this point. Yes?
After the trees, is that something you have to do, is plant so many trees?
Yes. Yeah, it's part of the city standards. Trust me, when I first drew it up, I didn't have them in there, and we went to our planning department, and he said, well, where's your street trees? I said, what street trees? And he said, well, look in the standards. So we got in the standards, and yes, it's required on any major corridor.
It's kind of strange because the city of Shelton just took out a bunch of trees on Highway North because it's starting the sidewalk. I'm sure these will do in time to start the sidewalk.
Well, these will have a root barrier inside of the sidewalk.
So Logan, the question was, how do we prevent these trees and these roots from basically damaging our roadway or our sidewalks?
Yeah, so what we use is a root barrier, which is sometimes metal, usually it's a fabric with a basically a retardant on it. Then when the roots touch it, they don't want to go through it, they want to go down. So it prevents the roots from actually getting under the sidewalk. Yeah, that was my biggest concern with the trees, other than disease and making sure they thrive, is that they don't mess up the sidewalk or the road. So
We understand that we have some deteriorating sidewalks, and most of them are from street trees, so we are addressing that issue with this project. Yes, yes. Sir, we have seen that, and we are dealing with it. So this is a rendering of what you would see looking at the bottom portion from 1st to 7th Street on Alder Street. You will notice that at between 2nd and 3rd, those older trees that are out there in that right-of-way now will be coming out and replaced with the trees selected as Logan spoke of. The other thing that you will see with this is a view at the courthouse. So one thing that you see is no parking on Alder Street at the courthouse. That parking has been eliminated. And the reason for that is city standards on arterial streets do not allow on-street parking. So we wanted to try to conform the best that we could with city standards. So we have been in contact with the county and their officials and come up with some mitigation to losing that parking. And what that consists of is at 4th, 5th, and 6th on the north side of the road, on those streets, we would widen those streets out and put some parallel parking on all three of those streets. So basically at building 8, between 6th and 7th on Alder, there are 4 parking stalls there parallel on the street. This would allow for 12 on-street parking stalls with an ADA ramp. So basically it would be crossing the street into building 8, which increases their parking from 4 to 12. Moving down to the courthouse area, they have 22 stalls that are on Alder Street at this point. They would gain a couple of stalls, increasing from 22 to 24 on 4th and 5th. And then the couple of very poor ADA stalls that they have on Alder Street now, they somewhat emulate a van accessible ADA, but they don't actually conform with the standards. So what we will do is move those 4 stalls just around the corner where the old big redwood tree is down there at the courthouse. So basically around the corner on 4th, we will install a new ADA ramp along with 4 van accessible ADA stalls at the courthouse. Sure.
I'm a little confused as to what you're going to widen on the street. You're widening them.
So the question is, what are we going to widen on 4th, 5th, and 6th? So if you're familiar with those roadways down there, they are very narrow. Right now, they are just 2 lanes of traffic, no on-street parking. And then a planter strip on both sides between the lane of travel and the sidewalk. There is about 10 feet between the curb now and the sidewalk. So we need about 8 feet for parallel parking. So we would pull out that curb, pave that new road all the way back to the sidewalk, creating enough room for on-street parking on both sides of that road.
From Alder to where?
From Alder North to Birch Street. So basically just a block north of Alder Street on 4th, 5th, and 6th. Sure.
On those trees that you're going to be taking out,
Yes.
whereabouts are you on Alder between what streets?
Question was, where are the trees at that we're proposing to take out? There are some very old, look like, I think they're birch trees, down between 2nd and 3rd on the north side of Alder Street, which we would be taking out with all of the infrastructure that we're putting in, the new sidewalks, new pavement. If we left those trees in there, most likely we would damage the root system, and then we run into issues of those trees becoming unhealthy and possibly falling over in like a windstorm, something like that. Yes, Tracy.
So you mentioned that the plan called for handicap parking where that redwood tree is. Are you thinking of taking that redwood tree?
Absolutely not. One thing we did here from the community was do not touch that tree, and we are not going to touch that tree down at the courthouse. That tree is staying there. So it would be on-street parking just around the corner from where that tree is at now. Yes?
So you're gonna eliminate all that parking in front of the courthouse. Why can't you leave that parking toward the courthouse? Not eliminate that. We already.
The question is why eliminate the parking at the courthouse? And the one thing that we've seen is we have quite a few crashes at the courthouse, because what you've got right now is you've got traffic that is backing out blindly into the traveled way. So that is one safety issue or aspect that we looked at and tried to address with this project. And right now, the county and all of their officials have been on board with moving that traffic just to the other side of the street and actually gaining a few parking stalls.
Can't just move some of that towards the courthouse.
You're still going to be backing out into the traveled way, one way or another. You would end up losing most of that grass and landscaping in there. I'm not sure that one of the nicest looking buildings in downtown Shelton that we really want to do that to. And we've found a way to mitigate that parking issue on the other side of the street. So moving down to the First Street intersection, this is what was proposed back in October when we first met. Was a T intersection. You had that old slip lane that came through on the south side of the triangle. So this was the configuration that we came up with. That was the best possible option back in October. Was the free movement north and south on First Street with a stop sign heading east and west on Alder. We had some serious concerns on the backup on that west lane, or that west leg of Alder Street. And we also heard from the community back in that meeting in October that we got the feeling that the sense that everybody was concerned about speeds coming down that roadway and traffic volumes on that north-south leg of First Street. So we worked with our consultant, Gray Osborne, and also our partners at WashDOT, and came up with a roundabout that fits into that triangle.
Our work is done.
So this is one of the roundabouts, a compact roundabout that was installed over in Cashmere. And I am going to just simply hit on a couple of these points, and then I am going to hand it over to our experts for any of those questions that you might have. This is one example that is similar to what is proposed to go in at First and Alder that was installed over in Cashmere. And this is the actual configuration that you might see out there. So this is Subway, Dr. Blevins' office, Mickey's Deli. So north-south on First Street, free-flowing traffic through that roundabout. This leg that goes over towards the motel would end up being a single leg off of that, but no entrance onto it. So this would turn into a one-way street coming off out of the roundabout through that intersection. And with that, I am going to hand this over to Denna and Brian, and they can explain some more and field some questions as they come up.
Good evening. My name is Brian Walsh. I'm joined by Dennis Spires, as we were introduced earlier. And she wants me to stand up. Okay, so we're going to sit there and stand up. So we're going to go through about 12 slides and touch a little bit on roundabouts. And I imagine with Craig's rules here, if there were some questions that came up, Dennis and I think are very comfortable in answering those. So that next slide, if you can maybe just forward it there.
You've got it.
I got it. Thank you, Craig. Sorry I'm going through this again. I must have hit the wrong button.
Now, Brian, we
This is how you treat
have
your
an
guests,
issue.
huh?
We're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
We'll get right back to you.
Thanks.